Oh, man, Tyrese Maxey may be the one that Joel Embiid has been looking his whole NBA life for. I mean, I want to take you back to last summer for a second because Joel had lived through all the frustrations with Ben Simmons, right? Then James Harden comes. They actually get along really well, but there was all this drama with management. He's frustrated with the organization. Joel gets married this past summer, and who is at his wedding? His former agent, current Knicks president, Leon Rose. And that is all everyone needs to have the little simmer that had been going on for a while of will Joel want to go to the Knicks be a full-blown explosion. That is what the Sixers walked into this season with. Harden gets traded. They don't know what's happening. There's pressure to make a trade before the trade deadline, so Joel won't demand a trade himself to the Knicks. Fast forward to last night, they're in the Knicks' own building, and the man who prevented that from happening, Tyrese Maxey, not only went full Reggie Miller, as you say, with the shot making, but he carried Embiid through that fourth quarter and overtime because Embiid is obviously dealing with so many health issues, I can't even keep count. And
it's
the fact
always something.
that it wasn't just, well, the fact, not making up the Bell's palsy. I mean, there's just so much stuff going on with him. And the fact that not only was Tyrese able to step up and do his own job, he was able to do some of Joel's job too, is what ding, ding, ding meant to me. This is the guy. And I think Philly's got to feel great no matter what happens in this series.
Yeah, I still got Philly somehow winning this thing just because it felt like to me over the last 3-4 games, they should have won those games. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, whatever the case is. They delivered it last night, mainly much like you said, because of what Maxey was able to do, not only in the fourth quarter, but just throughout the entire game. He got everybody involved for the most part. Now, look, Joel Embiid was going to probably get, you know, it would have been ugly in Philadelphia this morning had they lost.
That's a fact.
Based on the 9 turnovers. The 4 in the fourth quarter, but the 9 as a whole just was a bad deal. But a lot of that has to do with his health issues. Whether it's the Bell palsy, whether it's the migraines, whether it's his actual knee, he just can't move around.
Whether it's his fitness, whether it's his fitness.
Well, I mean, it's hard to get fit, even though he's struggled in times, but it's hard to get fit when you got a bum knee, especially for a guy this size. But when you look at what Maxey added, these 46 points, a career playoff high, that triple-double by Embiid is still imposing because he's a rim protector. Even if he can't jump, he's still at the rim already. So it discourages a lot of people except Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson didn't mind challenging him late in that game and even in overtime to the point where it became a demise to him because one shot blocked by Embiid was so important late in that game. Or was that in overtime? I believe it was in overtime where he said, okay, I got past him a couple times. I'm going to try this again. It didn't work. It worked in the favor of the 76ers. And that game never got away from the Sixers. It was always close. They went back and forth on scoring. But then what they should have done before Maxey hit that shot in regulation, foul him. Foul him. You foul him, you grab, as soon as that ball is inbound and he goes to dribble, just grab him. Just grab him.
There's some fear that if he gets up a shot, he's shooting 3 free throws. So
but
there's some danger.
If you grab him, coach,
if you tackle him,
if you grab him from before half court, if he could somehow get up and throw that, then we should lose. But I think that was a major mistake by the Knicks, and I believe that the Knicks have practiced these situations many times. But for whatever odd reason, in this moment in time, they didn't foul him, and that's what cost them the game.
And Coach Thibodeau said that Mitchell Robinson should not have fouled Tyrese, obviously, on the previous shot, the one that he went up and under. I think we have that one. We're still seeing the logo shot. What a shot that was.
That's worth showing as many times as they want to.
But you got to grab him, though. Just grab him.
But he had a 4-point play on Mitchell Robinson that got them back in the game. And I don't know if it's an ill-advised foul. I mean, he just made a great play going up and under, and he got Mitchell Robinson
on the floor. He just bumped him. Bumped him off course.
The Knicks have won their games by being aggressive, and the officials have shown really since March they're not blowing a ton of whistles, so I don't think it was a bad foul to take.
All right. I got 2 takes on this one. Let me start with the Knicks. I got a lot of friends in New York. I know you guys do, too. Starting with my man Michael Rappaport, big Knicks fans, and it was great last night to see the Garden that electric for the first time in a very, very long time. It's a great story. It's a cute story. It's a hot story in New York. But this is just me watching from a distance as a basketball fan. The Knicks are just overrated to me. And they're a little hard to watch on offense because as much as I like Jalen Brunson, it just degenerates into dribble, 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 dribble. And if he can make a shot, he makes a shot. But he's 6 feet 2 inches tall, and you can only carry a team so far when you're 6'2", unless you're Tyrese Maxey on the other side, who's also 6'2".
6'2"?
He's 6'2". All right, and I'm not sure he's 6'2".
5'11" to me.
Well, that's what they list him at. Thank you. He may be closer to 6 foot-ish. Okay. But the point is...
So am I.
All right, there you go. Bingo. No. But the point is, he makes a lot of shots and he misses a lot of shots. So for this series, he's shooting 29% from three, and he missed a lot of big threes last night that could have turned the tide for them in the fourth quarter and in overtime. He makes shots, he misses shots. So they just go as far as he can carry them, but they don't have much else. They obviously don't have Julius Randle, and I love Josh Hart and how hard he plays, but Thibodeau just plays him the whole. He played 53 minutes.
But eventually, Josh Hart's going to turn back into Josh Hart.
Yeah, eventually he will.
That's the reality of it. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
But you're not going to get the same Josh Hart night in, night out as you got. I think it was in game 2.
Yeah,
that was. You're just not going to get that guy.
Okay, and Anunoby is a really nice player, but he's not a great player, so he's not a difference maker to me. And so I watch the Knicks and I say, well, they're just going to go as far as he goes. Is he hot-handed or cold-handed? Is he going to make the shots or miss the shots? And then it came down to they're down 2 in overtime, and he got up off his feet, and Nicholas Batum can defend at the highest level. Yeah. And he's long, and he's crafty, and he's wise because he's been doing this for a long time. And here was the play where he got up on him, and at the last second, Jalen said, I got to pass it, and Hartenstein had cut to the basket, and he's not there anymore. And that's a crucial mistake late in overtime where they're just down 2.
He got caught in this game a couple times in the air where he had to get rid of basketball
because he's
not as big or as tall.
Yeah. Look, I would say they're not overrated. They've been overachieving. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Look, this is a team that expected to have Julius Randle out on the court in key playoff situations. They don't. And that shows over and over again. The thing they do is play harder than everyone else, more aggressively. They keep coming. They don't get tired. That has won them 2 games in this series. Yeah. And Jalen Brunson is the other ingredient, of course. He is playing at he was on my MVP ballot. He is playing at that top 5 in the league this season level. And those 2 things will win you some playoff games, especially against a team like Philly, which is having energy problems in the fourth quarter. And that's really what we got to look for in Game 6, to me, is how are these guys going to go down the stretch, especially with a crowd in Philadelphia that I expect to be even more Knicks heavy than the last one.
Okay. Now, my other take, and I still think they're overrated, but because people have sort of...
Well, I think they're a little bit of what Rachel said. Yeah. They're overachieving, but also what you said, they're overrated. But when you overachieve in New York City...
That's the point.
And all of a sudden, every single game you win, it just, the yeast continues to grow. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then eventually, they stick that pin in it, and that's probably what's going to wind up happening.
All right. I'm sure my followers get tired of me tweeting this because I've done it for 3 years. But I tweet all the time how much I love watching Tyrese Maxey play basketball because it's just fun. It's pleasing to my eyes to watch him because he plays with such spirit and energy and joy for playing basketball, and he plays at such a high level of skill with electric quickness. I'm not sure there's anybody any quicker in the league than he is. That first step, explosive quickness, he can just get by anybody and get in the lane at any moment. And he's got big heart and big guts, and he'll take and make big shots for them. And to me, in these moments, he's slightly more valuable than Jalen Brunson. In these big moments of this kind of a playoff series where you're on the brink and it's desperation, I'll take him slightly. And I got nothing but respect for Jalen because he has earned it, to your point, to be on your ballot this year. But Tyrese Maxey last night, he just said, no, I refuse to lose this game. And it took every one of those points. It actually, the final score was 46-40 because that's what he outscored Jalen Brunson. That was kind of the game. It boils down to those two, quote unquote, little guys carrying their big guys all the way home. And he did. He carried Joel. He just like put him on his shoulders and carried him to the finish line, which wasn't the finish line because they get to play another game now. So they are this guy, and we're going to go deeper into Joel, but I've been his biggest fan for a long time, but he just drives me crazy because he's into it and then he's not into it. And then at the end of the game, he played his tail off. He's diving on the floor for loose balls after he just drifts on defense for much of the rest of the game.
I mean, when you are injured, Skip, and you don't feel good, you want to preserve your energy for when it matters most. And so at the end of the games and in overtime, whenever he could play defense, whenever he could dive on the floor for that ball, when he dove, I was like, please don't land on this dude. Yeah. But he dove on the floor, he got it, and the coach was smart enough to say timeout because I didn't get it in game 1 or 2. Now I'm going to run on the court and make sure that you call this timeout. You expect for him in the fourth quarter because that's what guys at this level supposed to do. They're supposed to turn it on late in games and contribute, not stand around and just hang out.
Because he was so lucky they got away with the fourth quarter of 4 turnovers, because every time he made one, I'd say, Joel, what are you doing? Yeah.
But that's
just
exhaustion,
snap out of it.
No,
it's bad decision-making.
Totally
your decision-making dulls when you're that tired.
Absolutely.
And I think, we kind of forget how many, he missed months and only had 6 or 7 regular season games coming back. He's not in condition. As you point out with a knee injury, it's very hard to rehab and stay in condition. And to your point, Skip, he's got to be in great condition for him because if he's a little bit heavy, you see it out on the court. And we saw him, Kawhi Leonard very famously in the NBA Finals, he played in one in Toronto, load managed during the game. You could see him at parts of that NBA Finals sort of take a quarter looser and then really play in the fourth because he was dealing with his own injury. Well, that's what we see Joel Embiid
every single time Joel got up off the ground, jumped at all. When he came down, there was a grimace, there was a limp. It wasn't just, okay, I got the board. He was getting boards like Joker, but when he had to jump and come down, it didn't feel good, and you could totally tell that he was just gonna take his time and let it calm down, then he would go. I mean, and I don't look at that as out of shape, I look at that as hurt. Injured, whatever you want to call it, not feeling good.
Trust me, he's never been in great shape. He's not committed to it, never has been.
It's so hard for a guy that big to get into the shape that you think he should be in.
I know, but this is the non-LeBron. This is the opposite of LeBron.
But don't you think that he was in great shape for the start of the season when he was scoring a point, more than a point a minute and all of that? I think he looked great.
I know too much from too many people in those camps, and his nutrition is questionable at best. And
the man likes to eat. Leave him alone.
Well, it's not liking to eat. It's what you eat. You are what you eat in the end. And he has not found the secret to longevity yet. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll snap out of it at some point and realize that LeBron is still going very strongly at going on age 40 because he gets it. Yeah. And he's got it for a long time.
Well, look, there was that play, I don't remember if it was toward the end of the fourth or in overtime, where Embiid's coming down the lane and he just had the perfect opportunity to lift up and he didn't have to do a big dunk, but just to really just put the ball in. And he just threw it, 2 feet in front of him because he was just like, I can't do it, I can't get there. But I do have to say, even in that state, he's clearly so important that every time Nick Nurse pulls him out, that things just
I agree.
fall apart for the Sixers.
And listen, he even said after the game, Joel said, I was terrible tonight. I'm quoting him, I was terrible. And then I look at these numbers and I say, oh, wait a second. Okay, so you did have 19. I hate less than 20-point triple-doubles. They're really overrated, but it should start at 20. But he had 19, and he had 16, and he had 10, and he also had 9 turnovers, so he almost had a quadruple-double. But still, it's hard to replace it. You can't replace it because when he is right, trust me, he's the best player in basketball.
All you got to do, Skip, is look at the box score. Just look at his free throw attempts. He only had 4.
Right.
So that tells you right
not
there
to the basket.
He's not going to the basket because he can't.
Hey,
so I'm going to set up camp out on the perimeter, and if they collapse and come to me, then I give it to somebody else. And he got trapped multiple times because of that.
A lot.
Yeah, because he can't move. So they're like, let's go trap him and let's see if we can get the basketball from him, and they did turn it over a couple times by doing that.
Okay, but he is such a smart passer. He is Jokic-like. Yeah. I'm not saying he's quite on that level, that genius level, but he has high skill and vision as a passer, which is why he can get 10. He can get 12. He can also get to the free throw line 20 times and make 19 out of 20, because I have never in my career seen a better big man shooter than this guy. On touch, feel, from 3 or the free throw line, there's never been anybody of 7 feet 1 inch or taller better than this guy. So he's essential to who they are, but then there's certain nights where you just look and say, Joel, what are you doing? Give us just a little bit. You got a little bit, but he missed right on schedule. He misses shoot around with a migraine. And I'm like, every year it's like this, it's like a litany of either sick or hurt, sick or hurt, sick or hurt. Even through when we go back to that classic Kawhi-Toronto series, the whole 7 games, every day was a new development with Joel. Oh, he's got a stomach problem. He's got a tummy ache. I don't know. He can't go tonight. Well, he did. No, seriously. We sat here talking about it day after day after day.
He can't control those things. Yeah. He can't control all of a sudden migraine.
Some guys get tummy aches and some guys just don't, you know?
I don't know if the migraine is related to the Bell's palsy. It certainly could be that affects your face and head. And I mean, it's kind of remarkable. It feels 10 plagues like. But not only is he dealing with this injury, and not only has he had all these issues in the past, but now he's Bell's palsy during a playoff series and has been playing. And
they said it was a mild case, but it still affects your ability with your left side of your face.
I don't think there is a mild case. I think there can be a less serious case, but mild is not the word I would use for when that affects you.
Long as when your face starts to go numb, they catch it, you don't have to worry about those things. So they caught it early enough.
Yes, but half of his face was frozen. You could see it in one of those games. Half of his face was frozen. That's a lot to deal with. And to play as well as he has. And, of course, he's not looked great in fourth quarters, and he has been tired and all those things. But one of the main problems the Sixers have had to wrestle with in this series is if he gets rest at the beginning of the fourth, which he kind of needs for the rest of the game, they fall so far behind that it's often not make-upable. And I just think that speaks to how much of a presence he is, even banged up, even with all of the issues he's had, even with, you could see there's a fear factor to your point about not going to the basket. I do think it's his knee. I do think he's tired at the end of the games. But I also think that in the back of his head, he's thinking, don't get hurt. But you're
tired.
Don't get hurt.
You got to remember, Rachel, I understand he's been out of shape. Shaq was out of shape for a while. Yeah. It happens.
You can make a case always, but go ahead.
Well, whatever. You can make the case. Yeah. When you are injured, that fatigue sets in even more when you're out of shape. Yep. Because you're dragging, you're compensating, and you're hustling up and down the court. So I don't anticipate or expect for him to be the Joel at the beginning of the season in these playoffs. I just don't. But he is a cardboard cutout. And what I mean by that is, you're so good, go stand over there like the cardboard cutout in the grocery store. Just stand there. Right. Because they're going to respond to you. That's just the reality of it. That's why I always say, star players, if you're capable of getting on the field or getting on the court or getting out there on the diamond, that's all that matters. Yeah. Because people going to pay attention to you because at any moment, you might just hit something.
Okay, so I'm with you. Just because most of the time I look at the Sixers as having the 2 best players on the floor because I'm a little bigger fan of Tyrese than Jalen. Nothing against Jalen. But because of that, I just see him winning this series, but I thought they would from the start. Are you back to...
It's hard when you think about the injury issue with Joel, and who knows, there could be a wild factor. You know, we didn't know about the Bell's palsy until midway through the series. Like, there could be another wild card coming. They have to win they have to win. They have to keep winning. And the Knicks keep coming and coming. For the Sixers to get out of this series, it's got to go to 7 games by definition. And for that to happen, Embiid has got to be able to make it through those remaining 2 games. And it makes me nervous. I do think for Sixers fans.
If he makes it through, though. If he makes it through.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, to your point, like, two is better than 1, right? So I don't know if I would put Tyrese Maxey above Jalen Brunson. It's a luxurious comparison to get to make because they both played so well. Yep. But even if you put Jalen ahead, Embiid's still when he can do what he can do, he's still the best player on the court.
He just is.
He is a former MVP. Yep. I mean, he was on fire earlier this season. And, if Embiid is able to give what he gave last night, and hopefully
minus the
for
turnovers.
Sixers fans, just a little bit more in terms of not turning the ball over. They have a good shot. I would say that the Sixers are not afraid to go into the Garden for a Game 7 the way some teams would be. Joel Embiid is not afraid of anyone. And Tyrese Maxey just plays with so much joy, to your point, that,
When was the last
he's not
time
an
the
anxious
Knicks had
player.
a Game 7 at the Garden for people to be afraid of? When was the last time they had a Game 7?
I can't remember if during the Melo era they had a Game 7 or not. But look, I don't know who's going to come out of the Pacers-Bucks series, but if it's the Pacers and they end up playing the Knicks to the next round, if those two teams end up advancing,
yeah, I'll give you that.
The Pacers are a young team. I'm not sure I'd throw them in a Game 7 in Madison Square Garden, but I would certainly have no fear about throwing Nick Nurse, who's been there, and Joel Embiid, who's scared of nothing, and Tyrese Maxey, who just doesn't seem affected by it all. I would feel good about putting them in that position,
So I
but
give
they got
the
to make it there.
Knicks a better shot of winning Game 6 than a potential Game 7 because of the Nova Knicks. They got 3 guys from Philly who love Philly, are comfortable in that building, and the pressure seems in this series to be more on the home team than the visiting team, because now the Sixer fans are going to be back up like, you got to do this, and they're quick to boo if you don't. And if you flip it and get it to a Game 7 back at Madison Square Garden, the crowd will be so electric that I think it's hard on the home team to live up to their electricity.
I think now it's flipped back to Philly because that pressure. This is going to be the second elimination game that the Knicks are going to be faced. That they have to eliminate the Sixers. That's a lot of pressure coming out of New York.
Well, they're going to have a big fan base to support them, because not only it's much cheaper, it's still much cheaper to go to a game, even with playoff prices. It's much cheaper to go to a game in Philly. There's an Amtrak train that'll get you there in just a little bit over an hour. It's 90 miles. And Charles Barkley goes on TV last night and says there's going to be trouble if there's Knicks fans in Philly. You know what that's going to spur people to do in New York? Buy tickets for this
There's probably
game.
Knicks fans living in New York camouflaging the Sixer fans until the Knicks get there.
You mean in Philly? Yes.
I mean in Philly, yeah.
All right, up next, we got to talk about him. Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.